Welcome to The Real Money Show, the number 18778 silver and the website guildhallwealth.com. We are recording on Thursday instead of Friday, which is very interesting for us because we know that you're going to be listening to this show on Saturday or Sunday or on YouTube. But there's a lot that's going to be happening on Friday, so I think next week is going to be a huge week for us. But this week, even bigger, because we have special guest on the show today, part of the panel, Tracy Clark. Tracy, welcome to the show.
So happy to be here with you again today. You are right. Big changes around the corner.
Absolutely. Now, you are, just so to familiarize yourself with our audience, you are a performance energy coach. So you work with people, you help them understand, hey, I've got, something's pulling at me, I've got energy, I'm wasting energy over here, or I need to get rid of this blockage. Stop thinking about this, or stop having this affect my life and those things. That's how you really help people, if I've got it right, and from my experience. But now, of course, it's not just on an individual basis, is it? It's more about the group, because of it's not just a personal energy, but it's a global energy. Am I on track?
Yeah, I tend to work with large groups now because it is, most people are dealing with the same thing. There are personal issues that are also coming up, but the world is, I call it going through a rebirth, and nobody's going to escape it, no matter what part of your life you're in right now. So as a collective, a lot of people are dealing with fears, illusions, traumas, and showing them how they can take charge of their life and actually get through the mess we've been in for the last 2 years and that we will be in for the next couple.
I'm with you there. I definitely feel the energy. I think you and I are in the same sense of, we deal with a lot of people. We can get a sense of what's going on out there. We can feel what people are dealing with. So I think Jerry and I kind of have a similar situation in terms of dealing with groups as well. And over the years, we've sensed different things happening in the market. But today, not just in the market, but in general, there is a lot happening. Like, it definitely, I've had moments where I've literally felt like being on a plane with extreme turbulence of what has been going on. Have you, just out of curiosity, Jerry, have you kind of, but there's ups and
extreme culmination of all of these emotions, and certainly agree with the rebirthing. A lot of restoration, a rebirth, a revival of some sort. But I think certainly we all feel it.
So here's where I think that we can go today in this conversation, which I think will be very exciting for the audience, which is discussing the big lie. And the big lie, in this case, is the financial system. You and I, Jerry, have talked about this for years. Obviously, we know we're in a debt-based system. It is controlled by central bankers. The Fed basically prints money, gives it to the Treasury, and then the Treasury has to pay interest on it, which is where income tax came from. And every central bank around the world is colluding. And if you don't know that, then you should read Nomi Prinz's book called Collusion, and see how all the central banks get together to collude. And right now we're at a point where, and there's a great article today by Egon von Greyerz about the everything bubble, where he's just talking about the fact that in 2008, the system died. Everything after that is a complete illusion. So just on the topic of illusion itself, Tracy, what are your thoughts on the illusion of the financial system?
Yeah, well, that was my old world many, many, many years ago. And there's a lot of truths that are coming out. And the reality is, like you said, in 2008, and we know some of the books and movies that came out after that, that it wasn't fixed. But the problem that we have is the way, especially with finances and money and the way this is rigged at the top, I'll tell you, on an energetic space, that people get stuck in an illusion because they want to be caught in a comfort zone. So it's like the way they do it on the high bank level, where people are having a hard time, right? Markets are high, markets are high. Don't look over there. So it's like they have 100 bones, they're going to give out 97. So what? 3 people are left aside. And so the 97 are going, well, I got a bone. I'm fine. It's okay. Look at where the markets are up, all-time high. And that's partly what we're going through as a planet, is waking up and breaking like a spell, like an illusion that we've been under, that these systems and the banking system has worked for you. When in the reality, as the illusions are breaking off, it can create a lot of fear in people. What do I do with my money? Where do I place it? And I always say to my community over and over, you want to be early to the party, not late. And people are going to be late to the party. In my personal point, that's only my personal opinion, because the illusion is going to break, and then you're left seeing what is reality. And you are correct. The everything bubble, the systems don't work anymore. They are all collapsing. That's what these last 2 years have been about.
Yeah, I'll take a quote from this article from Egon von Greyerz, because I think it's very much on the same path of what we're talking about. He goes on to quote George Bernard Shaw. When the world goes mad, one must accept madness as sanity, since sanity is, in the last analysis, nothing but madness on which the whole world happens to agree. So I can sense this idea that everyone is into what's happening. We know that it's get rich quick. The markets only go up. Real estate only goes up. And if you want to buy into that illusion, then of course there is going to be absolutely nothing sexy about wealth preservation. On that note, would you agree, Jerry?
100%. I mean, if we just look back centuries, going back millennia, the quick flip mentality was never something that was adopted. It was always a very strategic way of preserving wealth and growing in tandem with physical assets. It was never a quick trade or a quick flip that got wealthy families to where they are today. So we have to mimic history, must be repeated, and we have to mimic the wealthy families and families that have preserved their wealth throughout the generations.
And I know we've got a lot to talk about today. We're getting a little late in this segment, but you've just created a great segue. By the way, the number 18778-SILVER and the website guildhallwealth.com. The segue being the idea of history repeating and rhyming. And Tracy, you had a recent video, and I want to get everyone to watch this video because you had did you call it story time?
Story time. Yeah.
Story time. Can you, in about a minute and a half, can you relay what the story was?
Yeah, quickly, it was basically this history repeating itself, wake up and see, but what people have to understand is this time it is coming to an end. It's not going to repeat that way where they're going to, the guys at the top are going to come in and make everything right and win. We're changing the way these systems are. It's why they're coming to an end. But you have to understand where they came from.
It's a groundswell of change too, right? And I feel like personally, when I look around, I see people who are really up for that fight, and there are other people who believe this is what they're currently seeing, right? That illusion up on the screen right now is with us forever. That this is just how it's going to be. And my new hated phrase is, "It is what it is." I hate that for "it is what it is."
Yeah.
But this idea that the illusion will not rescue the world economy, that we have to make these changes. And I think you're absolutely right, Tracy. We know that even look this week, the price of gold and silver came down. You look at all of the other dealers out there, their online stores, they're out of product already. We're quickly running out of product. At the same time, the premiums are starting to rise again. This is the third time in less than 20 months that this has happened. It happened right at the beginning of COVID. It happened in February of this year, right? When they try to silver squeeze things. And now it's happening again. Now, of course, the price of silver is not $11 an ounce. It's $22.80 or $22.50. But it's the same rinse and repeat cycle of trying to get people not interested in the market, I suppose, or counterintuitive things. How do you... The idea of counterintuitive, Tracy, how do you see that playing out in the things that you're experiencing and seeing?
Well, because, I work and listen to people all over the world, so I have a very broad perspective no matter what's going on in the world, especially where we've been the last 2 years. And I will tell you, the illusion, we've been in this for so long, and they say, well, they'll go intuitively because we've been running this system for so long. It has to be right. You don't tell me it's a lie. well, the lie is going to be exposed. The people that have run through the systems will be brought forth, because where we're moving to that people cannot wrap their head around, but they feel it, is that we're going to move to systems that will work for all of humanity, not just a few. And that's where people can't wrap their head around. And that's where they're going against their gut, saying, I know something's wrong, so let me play at this whole-time high party, which we know what happened in the 20s. They were having a party, but the party stopped.
And, you just mentioned something, this idea that people, if people see what's going on, right, there is this tendency of, if I go against the grain, am I wrong? Because if everyone is doing this, then I must be wrong. And this is something that Egon von Greyerz would talk about, this idea that, again, preserving wealth is not sexy, right? In an age where you can go out and make 300% very quick. So let's stay on this topic of the idea of being wrong. Are we all wrong? The number 18778-SILVER, the website guildhallwealth.com, and, of course, when will we be right? But we will be right back. You're listening to The Real Money Show on Global News Radio, 640 Toronto. Stick with us. Welcome back to The Real Money Show. The number 18778-SILVER and the website guildhallwealth.com. My name is Jeremy Wiseman. Today with me is Jerry Correia and Tracy Clark. And before the break, we were kind of talking about this idea of being wrong. And since we were on the topic of cultural studies, I'm going to talk about a favorite movie of mine, which is Some Kind of Wonderful. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Jerry. It's a good movie, John Hughes. Tracy, have you ever seen it?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I have.
Okay, so remember at the end when Leah Thompson is like, I would be right for the wrong reasons. Well, now I'd rather be right, right? So she takes off the earrings and she hands them to him, and she's just basically like, I'd rather be single than be with someone for the wrong reasons. Cry, right?
Yep.
Lesson learned.
Yeah.
So why am I saying that? Because right now there's a lot of people, I mean, we all feel this way. I've gone through it myself looking at the markets for years, this idea of being right and being smart, right? And there's this conception that, well, if you made money, you're smart. Not always, right? It's not always the case that if you just happen to make money that you were the smart one. You may have been following a inaccurate narrative for a while that showed itself to be right for a while, but in the end it was wrong. And this kind of goes back to the idea of truth. Truth is never wrong. Truth is right.
Right.
At the end of the day, right? So this idea of people relinquishing themselves, right? And just giving into this idea of the narrative must be right because it's been this way for so long. And I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to stand up and be wrong. I don't want to say, I'm going to buy gold when it's down. I'm going to do the counterintuitive things. I'm going to take money out of the bank because I don't feel that they're safe. I don't, this idea of caving to pressure to be with the crowd because, well, the crowd's right, aren't they? If I go against the crowd, then I'm wrong. And who wants to be wrong? Thoughts on that, Tracy?
Yeah, it actually comes from pretty much the time you are born into this world, because what are you stemmed into? You are pushed into, you want to be part of the crowd, be part of the crowd, be the popular one, be part of the crowd. And so it's a programming that goes on over and over and over. So what happened, and you know this, like why stockbrokers came into effect? They needed to create stockbrokers, right, to push a narrative, to feed their machine after the Depression. And, this whole new industry was created. And so they had to create an illusion that you want to be part of this crowd. And I'm not saying people didn't make money. I'm not saying any of that. But I'm just saying you got to look at why not precious metals and stuff. That's not sexy. And that's what the other people are doing, right? You want to do, you don't want to do what those other people are doing because the big crowd's over here. So people are so consumed with wanting to fit in, not wanting to be wrong, because at some point in their life, if they made a mistake, they deem it as failure. So I'm going to follow what everyone else is doing, even though in their gut, like you said, they go, something's not right. Like, you don't have to be, some off the charts brainiac to realize that, like you said, houses are off the charts crazy. I don't know if I could say it, but look at what happened with Evergrande. You don't have to be off the charts, like smart to go, these stock markets don't make any sense. Like A 5-year-old could probably figure this out. But again, they make this illusion, and your bodies are conditioned to want to fit in so bad. Like me, please, like me, that you will go against your intuition and do that crowd thing until you wake up one morning and, all of a sudden the markets have plunged who knows how much. Like, it's all based on illusions. People are programmed from birth, fit in. Look at it at school. Oh, don't be different. When they go to school, you want friends, right? Oh, I don't want to be the kid that nobody picks. I don't want to be that, even though being different should be celebrated. So, when you look at the precious metals, how many people, once you start to understand what's going on, I've noticed when people start to learn what's going on, they don't care about following the crowd. They're very interested in precious metals. Why? Why do we need that? Where are they coming from? Like, they start asking more questions. I'm sure you guys see this all the time. But it's like, it's not following the crowd. It's being independent. And when you're independent, now you're accountable and responsible for every action you take. And that's what people are afraid of.
Absolutely. I think you and I have discussed this a little bit before in the past, and it bears repeating, this idea that once you make that decision, okay, I want to own physical precious metals, something happens in your brain and you say, well, what if the government confiscates it? I've made this physical and mental decision, emotional decision to take charge of my assets, control my assets, take it literally into my own hands. But now what if the other, that stream that I'm standing up against wants to take it from me, right? And of course, that's where we come in and say, I'm glad you brought that up, because interestingly enough, and we'll talk about the big lie here, and this is why we understand these things, I think, much better than most, is if you were to point out to that person, hey, the government says inflation's at 2%. Maybe they've decided to up it to 4% on a transitory level. But when you go to fill up your gas tank and go to your grocery store and pay for the kids' private school or the gym membership or whatever it is, your energy bills, it's way higher than 4%. So there's a negative rate. Mm-hmm. You're losing money. So is the government being honest about that when they're taking from you? Because they're literally taking from you. They are robbing your purchasing power. And then on top of that, what are the taxes you pay? 30%, 40%, 50%?
Higher
and
than
then
that.
Yeah. And then you pay 13% tax on top of everything else that's left in your pocket, and you didn't say boo. Now you've made the decision to not participate in that by owning precious metals and having that wealth preservation. Now you're worried about will it be taken away from me? It is logical, absolutely logical. It is the next step that has to be walked through in a way. Jerry, quick comment on that?
Yeah, well, gold is your last line of defense. I mean, we are being bombarded from a tax perspective, from inflation. You mentioned negative real interest rates, which is which means that inflation is actually higher than the interest rates. So it doesn't matter if you're going to be raising interest rates. The inflation is much higher. You're losing year over year. And this is negative. And as we know here in the gold market, the gold correlation with negative real interest rates are probably right now, we're doing the math, it's a very, very good time for gold, because in a negative interest rate, a negative rate environment, gold outperforms. And talking about fear, like today, people are very fearful, very distrusting. It's very hard to find the truth. You're being lied to with inflation. We're being lied to about prices, growth, fiat currencies, this debt ceiling lie. It's not a ceiling. It is a target that continuously is getting broken year over year. Every headline, it just gets broken. So when we're talking about how do we quell fear, one of the tenets of what money is, we know that it must be divisible, portable, durable, scarce. The last tenet is recognizable. In a world where there's so much paper and so many cryptos, for so many options of cryptos, there's only one gold. And there is one gold which indicates trust, because nothing has survived. Nothing has a millennial record as a store of value as gold. So you have recognizability that quells the fear. And when we're talking about where do I put our trust, where do I put my capital when there is no trust, investors are turning to gold.
The number 18778 silver and the website guildhallwealth.com. Wow, I'm thinking about picking up more metal as you talk about that, Jerry, by the way. But this idea of trust, I want to stick on that because I was just, it's something that's come up. A lot of analysts in the market discuss this, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Tracy, this idea that a lot of people, analysts, et cetera, talk about at some point there will be no faith in the currency. We don't know where it is. We don't know how much money the Fed has to print before people say, I do not believe in this anymore, right? I guess, in essence, the illusion is gone. From what you're seeing, are people waking up in that sense? Are they starting to mistrust the system, mistrust the money, that kind of thing?
Well, they are in a lot of places. I keep saying my favorite term right now, and I've been saying it for quite a while, is we're in end game. And we're in end game, and you can see energetically the system is starting to dissolve. It's starting to unravel. And people, because of also what's gone on in the last 2 years, and you guys just said this, these systems don't care about you or I. They don't care. Like I said, if you get a bone or not, they don't care. But just because they've always continued to have control, what I'm seeing from different people and hearing, they're like, just because they've had control doesn't mean they have to continue. Again, we're so used to these systems, we don't know what it's like to function in something else. And you can see that this is the time where things are changing. And you can see people that are waking up say, I better have gold and silver. You're talking, Jerry, with cryptos. I see energetically at least 50 to 70% of them will go. It's like the internet days, I say like that, right? Like, I'm just talking on an energetic level, not advice there. But you can see, you got to know. Whereas gold and silver, you know that not only currency moving forward, however it is, because it's always been, but again, we've talked about this before, the aspects of how you can use silver in many, 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 many areas and places. And people are learning that. And I get people that say to me all the time, like, my people won't talk to me about gold and silver. I'm like, well, you got to call Jeremy, because what they're saying is, I'm afraid. I don't, like, people are like, do I leave my money in the credit union? Do I leave it in the bank? Like, they're seeing the illusion and they are afraid. And I'm like, well, you have to make decisions that if that means putting gold and silver, at least the way I say to people how on an energetic level is, I'm like, I always look at it and say, well, if this goes down and you have this, how do you feel? If this goes down and you have this, how do you feel? Right now, personally, I would not feel comfortable without having gold and silver in my space, because when I look energetically, that's the number one, I get chills, thing that will help us ride. But this system is coming to an end. It is drying up. It's coming to an end. People can see it everywhere.
Yeah, and in the next segment, let's look forward. Let's look at some of those scenarios that could play out and ask the question, would you feel comfortable with your current scenario, how you deal with your finances, et cetera, with some of these scenarios playing out or could possibly play out over the next several months? Wow, if our listening audience could have been a fly on the wall for the last break, we really got into things, and maybe we'll have a private one that we can put on YouTube one of these days. Yeah. Anyway, Tracy, we wanted to talk about some scenarios going forward with the idea in mind of if you knew this was going to happen, how would you feel if this happened to you in response? And so let's not procrastinate. Let's get the toilet paper now. And so that we're not caught off guard down the road. So I'm gonna throw it to Jerry to throw out the first scenario. If you need a little tee up, I'm gonna say financial crisis and what we've seen in the past, what it could look like going forward.
Well, exactly. I mean, we're Evergrande, you brought it up a couple times, Tracy, during the show. And, this is not even coming from us. We're just reporting from what Mr. George Soros has said. He was the one that coined it to be the Lehman 2.0. And as we're seeing, there's like protests happening in China. I mean, they want Evergrande to give them their money back or to resume these apartments. I mean, there's about 1.5 million buyers who are still waiting for their keys. Imagine that. I mean, they should have seen the writing on the wall, but they never did. But we know Bloomberg wrote today.
Why can't the government of China just bail it out?
They're talking about precedents, and it doesn't set a good example. I mean, they could, they may, but we know that Evergrande is one of many property developers in China, so they're just not the only one.
Okay.
But I mean, Bloomberg wrote today on the back of their potential default today. It's a huge Chinese property developer. If you have never heard of Evergrande, they own tons of money to a lot of people, but they may not be able to repay, and failure could cause a global financial crisis, coming from Bloomberg today, Jeremy. So Tracy, what are your thoughts on that and how it relates to another global financial crisis?
Yeah, you know what? It's something interesting that just sort of came through as you were talking there. And I've seen the images, you've seen the images. They want their money back. They're afraid. They're worried. A lot of them put a lot of their money in, right? Like anything, whether it's stock market or whatever. And this is what people do. And I'll tell you, a lot of my clients, when they have fears around money, they bring up 2008, similar to when we looked at Evergrande. And they're looking at their money differently. And people get into it, well, it hasn't happened to me, so it's not going to happen. Or I'll deal with it if it happens to me. And you're too late. Like those people screaming for their money, they're too late. So this is what's also shifting right now, that you got to get out of the mentality, if it hasn't happened to me. I say to people, okay, look at those people screaming for their money right now. Look at the people that went through 2008 and lost their homes and didn't have any gold and silver. And don't be that person. Say, if that happened to me today, because everybody gives their money to somebody else to handle, so they don't have to be accountable. And that's why people get afraid, too, of gold and silver, because right now they have to be accountable for it. Today, how would I feel? How would I really feel if that was me? That's the question people have to start asking now. That's where metals come in, because let's just a scenario, if the banks all went down and you didn't have access to your money for 3-4 days or a week or whatever, let's just a scenario, okay? How would you feel about that? People don't ask themselves that question because they go, oh, that would never happen. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it can't happen. Just like the Evergrande people, I read an article, and I think it was Lynette saying that also talked about it, how in the spring they were saying to these investors, it's fine, it's solid, it's great, nothing would ever happen, right? So they were under the illusion it would never happen to them. And this is back to what we've been saying all day. People have to get out of the illusion and say, well, what if it does happen to me? I better be protected. And if you have your gold and silver, well, that's going to balance out that part of the portfolio you maybe lost. Because I still have people terrified to move their money from 2008 because of what happened to them. That was a long time ago, but it was like yesterday to them.
And even just to comment on what you said just a moment ago, Bernanke said that the subprime crisis was contained, and like ground zero for the subprime crisis was also in San Francisco or in California, where Janet Yellen was the head of the San Francisco Fed, and I guess she was eating pizza or something. That she didn't know what was happening. She never commented on it. And also, while she was chairman of the Fed, she said, "Oh, there'll never be another crisis." And then, lo and behold, in the last couple of weeks, she's saying, "Oh, we're at a threat of default." Right. So it's like how quick things can change, and how quick, and also isn't it always interesting when someone who worked at the Fed, chairman, whatnot, when they leave, all of a sudden they've completely changed their point of view on the currency. I mean, like, Greenspan. Come to Jesus moment. He started off as a total gold enthusiast following Ayn Rand and whatnot, goes to the Fed, hates gold, tells not Rand Paul, Ron Paul, that, what we're trying to do at the Fed is mimic the discipline of gold with our interest rates. And it's like, well, why don't you just use gold? Why do we need you, Mr. Wizard? And of course, after he leaves, now it's you got to get gold in your portfolio. So who do you believe? Who do you believe in these situations? I don't know. Another question would be, did your advisor call you in 2008? We've been in scenarios like this where the market was going down, and I can tell you those advisors are lifeguards in a tsunami, right? Yeah. How protected do you think a lifeguard is going to help you in a tsunami? You have to make sure that all of your stuff is already well out of harm's way when this stuff happens. right? Speaking of tsunamis, I know you're laughing, Tracy, because you already know where I'm going with this. You really feel that there's a tsunami coming, huh?
Hey, I did a video on my YouTube, prepare for the tsunami. Like literally, that's what I called it, because it's exactly that. And what people are doing is they're going about their day. So a tsunami is already out there brewing, and then boom, it's over you. You have no time to prepare. You're done. You're just now grabbing onto anything. There's carnage. There's disaster, like everywhere. And as you were talking, I kept hearing that song, Michael Jackson, they don't care about us. People have to understand these systems don't care about you and I. And the tsunami is coming. And that's where gold and silver is your Noah's Ark. You guys said it, right? You're building the ark. It's being built and somebody's building the ark. I think we said that I are building an ark, but this is building your ark with gold and silver. So when that tsunami comes, you can breathe. You're not running out to get toilet paper. You've got your extra food. You've got your gold and silver. You're not running. And I know that can scare people, but I can tell you, I feel it every day. I say to my community, guys, I can't tell you what to do. I can't give you advice, but please, I don't want you caught in the tsunami. You got to have some peace because it is coming. And the smoke and mirrors and the illusion, they're going to smoke and mirror illusion just like we've lived in the last 2 years. And then the tsunami is going to be upon you, and then it's too late. Then you're building carnage.
We're talking with Tracy Clark, high performance energy coach, and also because of what's happening globally, it's also becoming more of a group focus as well as an individual focus. And I do encourage everyone to go to your Telegram channel, Tracy, because, especially for these day-to-day audio clips that you put out, just to help people ground themselves, because energetically there's just so much happening. Even if it's just the idea of just so much news coming out and so much negative stuff all over, there's just a lot of turbulence. So I want to encourage everyone to go to your Telegram. Can you give everyone the Telegram channel so that they know where to find you?
Yeah, well, I say the easiest way is go to tracylclark.com, scroll to the bottom, just hit the link right there.
tracylclark.com.
I'm a little technically challenged, and when I set it up, I forgot to put the whole name. So we've got a weird thing. So I say just go to the website, go to the bottom. You can click and get right in. Yeah.
And, of course, if you want to purchase some precious metals, you can go to guildhallpreciousmetals.com, the number 18778 silver, and the website guildhallwealth.com to learn about how to put physical precious metals in your portfolio. In the next segment, look, we haven't talked a lot about the fact that over the past week, gold and silver are down, but we need to talk about what's going on in the market in terms of supply, and that's going to have a big effect going forward into the future. So stick with us. Jerry, it's been a crazy, crazy week. Mm-hmm. Tracy, I don't know how you feel about this particular week. It has been absolutely nuts. Mm-hmm. It seems the more the price of silver and gold go down, the more people want it desperately. And we're starting to see, just as we've seen before, premiums are on the rise.
Spreads are going up, Jeremy. Demand is literally through the roof. And, we did mention that these are with the end of the dog days of summer. The quiet times are over, and exactly what happened. The dip, we had a lot of buyers, a lot of dealers coming into the market. As a result, spreads starting to move higher. Costs of silver going up internally. So behind the scenes, this is an indication that supply is diminishing. However, spreads are still about 50% lower than the heights that we saw back in last summer, Jeremy. So still a good time to be buying. So get in touch.
I just know that it is tough to get physical product. We've added a wholesaler to our stable, if you will, and it's tough.
It's still,
we're looking at further and further out to get physical product. We've been here before, again, third time in the last 20 months. And so I want to ask you, Tracy, in terms of, I will say right now, you got to be early to this. You have to try to get in now. I think the prices are low risk entry personally. If you haven't started your portfolio, if you're looking to cost average, again, a great time. But in terms of timing things, and I don't want to hold you to any predictions, you don't forecast or anything like that, but you've talked about this idea of heading into a dark winter, that things are going to be happening, that the truth will be revealed. And if people are watching, it's becoming harder and harder and harder to hold back the truth. And that could be on a political, geopolitical, financial. How do you feel about what we're heading into? Is it just the feeling of everything culminating? Can you just tell us a little bit more about this dark winter we're heading into?
Yeah. Well, I see, feel, hear, and yes, timing can move depending on the collective. People don't understand that we're all connected. But in terms of precious metals, my energetic point of view only, I'm like, they're paying you to take this stuff. Like, you want to take it now. Like, you are being paid to take it. Very, very undervalued. But with the dark winter, everything's coming unglued now. Everything. I don't care if it's finances, if it's government, what's been going on, it's going to come unglued. And unfortunately, in our world, we call it a dark night of the soul, and the earth is going through a dark night of the soul. And we can't escape it. We have to go through it if we want to make a better world, and we got to wake up. And it's going to be painful. It's like the birthing pains. We are in the canal, and it hurts like heck, and it's going to be heavy over the winter. And I don't say that to scare people, because better things are on the horizon. However, it's my only personal, when I look at the energy, if you don't have precious metals, I think people are going to be very shaky. They're not going to understand, because nothing can stay status quo anymore. It's done. The Band-Aid's getting ripped off. I don't know how else to describe it to people, but if you understand really what happened in the last 2 years, these systems over the last hundreds and thousands of years, they're done. It's a shift, and that's why people are being crazy right now, because we've gone through a massive vibrational shift, which is making anxiety, depression, fear, worries very heightened.
Yeah, it definitely status quo is gone. I mean, if you look at the rich got richer, the poor got poorer, the idea of universal basic income, red herring, that's just another carrot, another stick. It doesn't work. We could go on and on about that, but that, you could even look at the Fed, for instance, and say the Fed doesn't care about people. The Fed cares about its connection to the Dow, its connection to the stock market. They have lived and died by the sword of the stock market. They don't care what's happening to the rest of the country. They could care less. All they care about is making sure that they protect those banks. And, you have to say, well, why am I participating in those then? Why am I participating in that? I mean, we're not telling everyone, oh, get rid of all your money, get out of the banking system. But this is about, okay, I need to make sure that I've got some peace of mind, that I have a little bit on red, right? I'm not all on black here, and that I'm hedged. That I'm hedging the portfolio, because even if you looked at a 10-15% allocation of, let's say, metals in your portfolio, that is an insurance policy, right? Now, of course, there's a lot of people who want a lot more than that, because once you've done that, you might say, well, now I won't feel comfortable until I have up to 30%, up to 40%, but you have to start somewhere. And I guess my biggest worry would be that things start to really unfold. And I know as someone who's been in the market for a long time, it's going to be, okay, that's it. Like, hands off, like in those cooking shows. It's like, time's up. Yeah. Can't do anything else. Like, you just have to sit and watch it happen now. Can't help anyone else. Can't, do much else other than just watch this thing go. And I feel like there is a reward at the end of the tunnel here, isn't there, Tracy?
There is, and that's where if people get out of not following the crowd and go do some homework, ask questions. What I love about what you guys do at Guildhall, and everybody that I know, that the reason we love you guys so much is because you educate. You don't push. You're educating people. That's what you're doing on the show here. And when it's a new area, it can be scary. But these are unprecedented times. People have to understand that.
And one of the reasons why we did want to have you on the show is because it is unprecedented times, and it's not just about physical metal. It's about the fact that so much is happening. It can be a lot to deal with, and I would encourage everyone to go to your website because they need this. They need people, some guidance. They need people to know that, hey, there's a lot of like-minded people as well. We're here to help and be helped. So I want to encourage people to go to your website and find you as well. Can you please just share again once again the website?
TracyLClark.com.
Tracy, I am so grateful that you were able to join us today on the show. I know you and I could talk for hours, maybe not just on precious metals, but nonetheless, fantastic to have you. Thank you so much. Jerry, thank you for being on the show as well, and thank everyone for joining us and also for acquiring your precious metals, and we hope that it's been a good experience for you. The number 18778-SILVER, the website guildhallwealth.com, and next week, I know we didn't talk about it, but next week we will give the draw for the 5 ounces of silver maples for those who purchased on the Precious Metals website. You've been listening to The Real Money Show on Global News Radio, 640 Toronto.